Jake had always loved the quiet hum of his neighborhood, tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and the gentle murmur of friendly neighbors made his suburban life feel like a small haven from the chaos of the city. But on this particular afternoon, the calm he cherished was about to shatter. He had just returned from a late meeting, parking his brand new Tesla Model 3 in the driveway like he always did. The sleek black body gleamed in the sunlight, a trophy of his hard work and a symbol of his forward-thinking lifestyle. As Jake stepped out of the car, he felt a sense of pride mixed with satisfaction. But then he saw her. Karen. The name sent a chill down his spine. Karen was the unofficial queen of the HOA, a woman known across the neighborhood for her sharp tongue, unyielding control, and a knack for stirring trouble. She was the type of person who wielded the HOA rules like a weapon, always ready to police even the smallest infractions with ruthless precision. She'd made a career out of being the neighborhood watchdog, but everyone whispered that her tactics often crossed the line into bullying. Today, she was marching straight toward him, her eyes fixed like lasers on the Tesla. "Excuse me," she snapped before Jake could even greet her. "That car. Give me the keys." Jake blinked in disbelief. "What?" he asked, stepping back slightly. "The Tesla. This is my car." Karen's lips curled into a smug smile. "No, it's not. It's mine." Jake's heart skipped. The neighbors nearby had begun to peek through their curtains and windows, sensing something was off. "You're joking," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "How could that possibly be true? I bought this car with my own money. The title and registration are in my name." Karen folded her arms, standing her ground as if she were the rightful owner of the street itself. "The HOA has records. You don't," she said sharply. "You must hand over those keys now, or this will get ugly." Jake's pulse quickened. "What records? What are you talking about?" Karen leaned in, lowering her voice, but still loud enough for the small crowd gathering to hear. "There was a clerical mix-up. The HOA transferred the car's ownership to me last week. You must have missed the notice." Jake's mind raced. He had never received any such notice. And even if there was a mistake, why would the HOA give Karen his Tesla? "Listen, I'm not handing over my car to you based on some mysterious mix-up you just pulled out of thin air," Jake said firmly. Karen's eyes narrowed dangerously. "I'm not asking, I'm demanding. And if you don't comply, I'll escalate this to the HOA board and the police." Jake's breath caught. The threat hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. For a moment, silence fell. The tension was palpable. The neighbors watching felt like silent jurors, witnessing the first act of a brewing storm. Then Maria, Jake's next-door neighbor, stepped outside quietly, pulling out her phone. She started recording, sensing that whatever was unfolding wasn't going to be just another HOA squabble. Karen didn't notice. She continued her tirade, her voice rising with every word. "You think you can just ignore HOA rules and do whatever you want? Not in my neighborhood. That Tesla is mine. You will hand over the keys." Jake clenched his fists, fury and confusion battling inside him. "How can you claim my car is yours? This is ridiculous." Karen's expression hardened, and she took a step closer. "Ridiculous? You'll see soon enough," she hissed. The sun dipped lower behind the trees, casting long shadows on the street as the neighbors held their breath. Jake realized this wasn't going to be a simple misunderstanding. It was the beginning of a war. Jake's mind was racing, but he forced himself to stay calm. Karen's bold claim was impossible, yet she stood there with an unshakable confidence, as if the Tesla really belonged to her. His neighbors were watching, the street growing more crowded with curious onlookers, who whispered among themselves, "I want to see the paperwork," Jake said firmly, crossing his arms. "If you have proof, then show it. Otherwise you're just harassing me." Karen smirked, reaching into her oversized purse with theatrical slowness. "Oh, I came prepared," she said, pulling out a manila envelope thick with documents. It flipped it open like a judge revealing a verdict and began brandishing a stack of papers. "Here are the transfer forms, signed by the HOA president. The vehicle registration has been updated. This is official." Jake glanced at the papers. At first they looked convincing. The forms were stamped and had signatures that looked familiar from previous HOA meetings, but something about the handwriting seemed off. He squinted at the signature, claiming to be the HOA president's. It was hurried, jagged. "Where did you get these?" Jake asked suspiciously. Karen's smile grew wider, almost predatory. "From the HOA office, of course. They confirmed everything. I'm just here to take what's rightfully mine." Maria, still recording discreetly from the sidelines, moved closer, eyes darting between Karen and Jake. Jake took a deep breath. "I've lived here for years. I pay my dues. Nobody ever told me the Tesla was transferred to you. I want to see the official HOA records." Karen laughed, a sharp, unpleasant sound. "Records don't mean a thing if you don't have the keys. You're being very stubborn, Jake." Jake's frustration mounted. How could someone hijack his car like this? He felt a mixture of anger, disbelief, and growing fear. Was Karen trying to steal his Tesla right under everyone's noses? And why? Suddenly Karen stepped forward, blocking Jake's path to his own garage. "Give me the keys now, or I'll have the HOA revoke your parking privileges. And maybe even your house contract. You don't want that, do you?" the crowd murmured. Some looked concerned. Others whispered that Karen had gone too far this time. Jake's mind flashed to stories he'd heard about Karen's ruthless tactics. Neighbors who had been fined thousands, or forced to repaint their homes under her demands. "You don't scare me," Jake said, trying to sound braver than he felt. Karen's eyes narrowed. "You should be scared." Then, as if on cue, she pulled out her phone and called someone. Jake caught a few words. "Yeah, it's the Tesla situation. Escalating." The line went dead, but the message was clear. Karen was prepared to unleash more pressure, maybe even drag the police into this. Jake felt the weight of the stares around him, some supportive, some judging. What if Karen really had influence with the local authorities? Was he about to be steamrolled? Maria moved closer, her voice low but urgent. "Jake, don't back down. This looks like a setup." Jake nodded, his gut telling him Maria was right. As Karen paced impatiently, the tension thickened. Neighbors started whispering about HOA corruption rumors, power plays, and mysterious clerical errors like this one. Jake's eyes caught a glimpse of something odd. Karen slipping a small white envelope into her purse while no one was looking. His heart pounded harder. What was in that envelope? Could it hold the key to her sudden claim? "Wait," Jake said, raising his hand. "I want a formal investigation. If you're telling the truth, we'll see it in the official HOA records." Karen's face twisted with impatience. "Fine. But don't expect to keep driving that car in the meantime." With that, she turned sharply and stalked off, leaving Jake standing in the driveway, surrounded by whispers and questions. The peaceful neighborhood had suddenly become a battleground, and Jake realized this was just the beginning. The tension that afternoon hung thick in the air like a gathering storm. Jake stood on his front porch, heart still pounding from the confrontation with Karen. He stared at his Tesla, parked innocently under the golden glow of the late afternoon sun. Now a prize at the center of a brewing battle, the neighborhood that once felt safe and familiar now felt strange and hostile. From across the street, Maria's phone was still recording. She had been quiet through the confrontation, her eyes sharp and calculating. As Karen walked away, Maria clicked stop on the video and tucked her phone into her pocket. "This is going to help," she whispered. When Jake caught her gaze, Jake nodded. He trusted Maria. She had always been a steady presence in the neighborhood, the kind of person who noticed everything but spoke only when it counted. If anyone could help him find the truth, it was her. But even with the video, Jake knew Karen was dangerous. Her reputation for manipulation and intimidation was well earned. And what was in that mysterious envelope? She'd slipped into her purse. The question gnawed at him. Over the next few days, Jake began digging. He made calls, visited the county records office, and contacted the local DMV. Every step revealed no hint of ownership change or transfer related to his Tesla. The car was legally his, no question. Meanwhile, Maria kept a close eye on Karen. She shared stories from neighbors about similar incidents, Karen's strange power plays, sudden rule changes, and unexplained fines. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, revealing an undercurrent of fear and secrecy beneath the neighborhood's polished surface. Late one evening, Jake received a text from Maria. "Meet me by the community garden at 9. I found something." Curious and cautious, Jake arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The garden was dimly lit, shadows stretching like fingers across the path. Maria was already waiting, looking around nervously. "I went through the HOA office files today," she said quietly. "Guess what I found?" Jake leaned in, heart racing. "Karen's been fabricating documents. I found copies of papers she submitted, claiming ownership of several things she never had. Cars, lots, even some homeowner contracts. And that envelope, I think it's full of fake paperwork." Jake's breath hitched. "Are you sure?" Maria nodded. "Absolutely. And I got it all on video. The way she threatened you, the lies, everything." Suddenly, footsteps echoed. Nearby, they froze, looking toward the bushes, where a shadow moved. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered. Maria pulled her phone out, ready to record again. "Stay close." The shadow emerged. It was Mr. Alvarez, the elderly man from 2 houses down, known for his quiet demeanor and keen observation skills. "I didn't want to get involved," he said, voice low, "but I've seen Karen sneaking around, handing out papers to certain board members. She's controlling the HOA like it's her personal kingdom." Jake's eyes widened. "So she's not just targeting me. No, it's bigger, much bigger." A chill ran down Jake's spine. The calm neighborhood was anything but peaceful. As they talked, Jake realized how deep Karen's web of deceit ran. She wasn't just demanding his Tesla. She was trying to rewrite the rules of the entire community. And with every step he took to expose her, the danger only grew. Maria glanced at her phone again. "I'm uploading the video to a secure cloud. If anything happens to us, people will know the truth." Jake nodded grimly. The stakes were higher than ever. Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a master manipulator, and Jake had just stepped into her trap. The HOA boardroom was cold and sterile, a sharp contrast to the simmering heat of the conflict outside. Jake entered cautiously, clutching a folder stuffed with documents, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. This was the moment to confront the HOA, Karen's playground, but also her stage to spin her web. The room was already half filled. Board members chatted quietly, their faces a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Jake recognized a few familiar faces, some neighbors who had grown tired of Karen's antics, others who seemed suspiciously loyal to her. The air crackled with unease, like everyone was waiting for a powder keg to explode. At the head of the table sat Karen herself, regal and poised, her usual icy smile in place. She eyed Jake like a predator sizing up prey. "Jake," she said sweetly, "I see you've decided to join us. I hope you're ready to listen." Jake took a deep breath. "I'm here because of the false claims you made about my Tesla. I want the board to see the truth." Karen's smile sharpened. "The truth? Funny, because I have all the paperwork right here," she said, pulling out her own folder with exaggerated flair. The meeting began with Karen presenting her version of the story, weaving a narrative that twisted facts and cast doubt on Jake's ownership. She claimed the transfer was a formality that Jake had ignored, implying he was negligent or deceitful. Board members exchanged glances, some nodding quietly, others clearly unconvinced. Jake could feel the scales tipping both ways. When Karen finished, Jake stepped forward. "I have records from the DMV and the county registrar showing no such transfer took place. The documents Karen presented are forged." Murmurs rippled through the room. Karen's eyes flashed dangerously. "Are you accusing me of forgery?" "Yes," Jake said firmly, holding up the forged documents Maria had uncovered. "And I have a video recording of your threats and intimidation tactics." The room went silent. At that moment, Maria stood and handed her phone to the HOA president. The video played, showing Karen's aggressive demands, the threats, and the moment she slipped the mysterious envelope into her purse. Gasps echoed around the room. Some board members shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Karen's gaze. Others whispered among themselves. Karen's composure cracked. "This is a witch hunt," she spat. "You're all being manipulated by him." But the seed of doubt had been planted. Then, in a hushed voice, a board member spoke up. "There have been complaints about Karen's conduct before. We need an independent investigation." Karen's face turned red with fury, but she said nothing. Suddenly, the door opened. 2 police officers stepped inside, their presence freezing the room. "We've been called here on suspicion of fraud and harassment related to HOA activities," one officer announced. Karen's eyes widened. Jake's heart pounded with a mix of fear and hope. The officers began questioning Karen and reviewing the evidence. The board watched in stunned silence. As the officers led Karen out in handcuffs, a collective gasp filled the room. The powerful woman who had ruled the neighborhood with an iron fist was finally being held accountable. Jake's relief was tempered by lingering questions. How deep did the corruption go? And would this be enough to save the community from Karen's shadow? The meeting adjourned, but Jake knew the fight wasn't over. The neighborhood was watching, waiting, and the real battle for justice was just beginning. The arrest of Karen sent ripples through the neighborhood. For a moment, Jake thought the nightmare was over, but the victory felt fragile. Like a candle flickering in the wind, something gnawed at him, an uneasy feeling that Karen's scheming was only part of a larger, more sinister puzzle. Jake dove headfirst into the aftermath, determined to uncover the full truth. He worked late into the night, scouring HOA records, public documents, and even the few emails he could obtain through friendly board members. The deeper he dug, the more tangled the web became. It was during one of those late sessions that he stumbled on something unexpected. A series of financial ledgers hidden in a folder, mislabeled as old meeting notes. The ledgers detailed suspicious payments and transfers, all linked to Karen, and disturbingly, to a few other prominent HOA board members. Jake's fingers trembled as he traced the entries. Large sums disappearing into offshore accounts, payments are made to unknown contractors with no records of work done, and strange reimbursements listed under vague descriptions like community enhancement or special projects. He stared at the screen, heart pounding. This wasn't just a power grab over a Tesla. It was a full-scale corruption scandal. That night, Jake shared the findings with Maria, who listened intently. "This explains a lot," she said quietly. Karen wasn't acting alone. She had support, or at least silence, from others. The two agreed to approach the authorities with the new evidence. But Jake knew Karen's allies wouldn't go down without a fight. As if to confirm his fears, the next morning he found his Tesla vandalized. Deep scratches along the driver's door, a shattered side mirror. The message was clear: back off or face consequences. Jake felt a mix of anger and fear. He reported the vandalism to the police, but his trust in the system wavered. If Karen's influence had reached law enforcement before, who knew where it ended? Yet Jake refused to be intimidated. With Maria's help, he secured the ledger files in multiple backups, sharing copies with trusted neighbors who had also grown, wary of the HOA's leadership. Meanwhile, rumors swirled. Whispers of secret meetings, backdoor deals, and threats against those who spoke out filled the community. Neighbors who once ignored the HOA's machinations now looked to Jake as a beacon of hope and a target. One afternoon, as Jake walked his street, he noticed a new flyer posted on a lamppost. It was anonymous, but the message was blunt: stop digging or else. His blood ran cold. But the flyer also stirred something else. A fierce determination. If Karen's network was this deep, then exposing them meant risking everything. The tension in the neighborhood thickened, with every glance and whispered conversation feeling like a countdown to confrontation. Jake and Maria planned their next move carefully, a public meeting to present the evidence and rally the neighbors, forcing the HOA board to answer for their actions. As Jake looked at his scarred Tesla in the driveway, he knew the fight was far from over, but he also knew one thing. This time, he wasn't backing down. The night before the public meeting, Jake couldn't sleep. His mind raced with every possible outcome. What if Karen's allies showed up to intimidate him? What if the evidence wasn't enough? What if the neighborhood turned against him? The stakes had never been higher. Morning arrived gray and cold, the sky mirroring Jake's anxious mood. But as he stepped outside, he was surprised to see neighbors gathering. Families, couples, even longtime residents who rarely got involved. Word had spread fast. Everyone was ready to hear the truth. The community center buzzed with a tense energy, whispers turning to murmurs as people took their seats. Jake and Maria stood at the front, folders of evidence neatly stacked on the table. Jake cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we're here to expose a corruption that's been hurting our neighborhood from the inside." He clicked on a projector and the first slide appeared. A scanned copy of the forged documents Karen had used to claim his Tesla. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jake methodically presented the evidence, the forged ownership papers, the threatening videos, and most damningly, the financial ledgers detailing embezzlement and secret payoffs. Faces in the crowd shifted from disbelief to shock. Murmurs became louder. Some neighbors exchanged worried glances. Others nodded grimly. Maria then took the stage. "We also have testimony from witnesses, including Mr. Alvarez, who has seen Karen distributing fake documents and influencing board members. Suddenly, a door slammed open. Karen stormed in, flanked by two of her closest supporters, board members, who had been silently watching the proceedings. "Lies!" Karen shouted, her voice cutting through the room. "This is a smear campaign orchestrated by Jake to ruin me." The room fell into chaos as arguments erupted. Some defended Karen, while others demanded her removal. Jake held up his hand for silence. If Karen believes these accusations are false, let her answer to an independent investigation. Until then, we need to protect our community. The tension was electric. Suddenly, one of Karen's supporters, a middle-aged woman named Linda, stepped forward. "I've been on the board for years," Linda said hesitantly. "I've seen things I'm ashamed of. Karen pressured me to sign documents without reading them. I want to come clean." A stunned silence followed. Linda's confession cracked the foundation of Karen's support. Other neighbors whispered, some nodding, others exchanging uncertain glances. Then, unexpectedly, the HOA president himself appeared from the back of the room. His face was pale. "I want to assure everyone," he said, voice trembling slightly, "that the board will cooperate fully with the investigation. Karen's actions do not represent our community." With that, he called the meeting to a close, promising transparency and justice. Outside, as neighbors spilled into the cool air, Jake felt a cautious hope blooming, but his instincts warned him. The fight wasn't over. As he glanced at his Tesla, still bearing the scars of the vandalism, he knew the road ahead would be long and dangerous, because Karen's network, while shaken, was still out there. And this time, Jake was ready to finish what he started. The days after the public meeting were a whirlwind. Jake's phone never stopped ringing. Neighbors calling to thank him, asking for updates, or warning him of suspicious activity around the neighborhood. Maria stayed by his side, their partnership stronger than ever. But just as Jake was beginning to feel a glimmer of victory, a new threat emerged from an unexpected place. One evening, as Jake was locking his Tesla in the garage, a knock came at his door. Opening it cautiously, he found an unfamiliar woman standing there, her expression tense but determined. "Jake, my name's Elise. I used to work for the HOA as an assistant before Karen took over," she said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I've got information you need to hear. Things that weren't in the ledgers or videos." Jake invited her in. As they sat down, Elise's story poured out in hushed tones. She had witnessed Karen and some board members orchestrating fake bids for community projects, funneling money to shell companies, and even bribing a local official to keep quiet. "What's worse," Elise continued, "Karen kept a secret ledger, offline, no digital copies, detailing everything. She trusted only one person with it, a man named Victor." Jake frowned. "Victor? Who's that?" "A fixer," Elise said bitterly. "He handles the dirty work. Intimidation, cover-ups, silencing people. No one sees him, but everyone knows the damage he can do." The revelation sent a chill through Jake. Victor was the missing piece, the shadow behind the scenes, keeping Karen's network alive even after her arrest. But there was hope. Elise also handed Jake a small flash drive she'd secretly taken from Karen's office before quitting. "This might help. It's encrypted, but it's the only copy of the secret ledger." Maria, who had joined them by now, frowned as she examined the drive. "If we can crack this, we might finally have the smoking gun to bring down the whole operation." The next days became a race against time. Jake and Maria worked with a trusted cybersecurity expert, hacking through layers of encryption late into the night. Meanwhile, strange things began happening around Jake's home. Tires slashed, a brick thrown through his window, and ominous notes slipped under his door. "Stop digging or else." The tension was palpable, but with every threat, Jake's resolve only hardened. Then, one night, the breakthrough came. The drive unlocked, revealing pages of detailed transactions, names, dates, everything Karen had tried to hide. Among the names was Victor's full identity, a man with a history of intimidation in nearby communities. With the evidence in hand, Jake contacted the police again, this time demanding protection as the stakes skyrocketed. The police took the threats seriously and assigned an officer to watch over Jake. It was a small comfort in a storm of uncertainty, but the neighborhood was watching too. Slowly, neighbors began to rally, sharing their own stories and fears, realizing the extent of the corruption and danger. Jake felt the weight of their trust, knowing he had to see this through, not just for himself, but for the entire community. The final confrontation was looming, and this time, Jake was not alone. The night was heavy with silence as Jake sat in his living room, the glow from the streetlights filtering through the curtains. Maria was on the phone coordinating with the police, who had promised extra patrols after the recent threats. The tension was nearly unbearable. Every shadow seemed like a threat. Every noise, a warning. Suddenly, Jake's phone buzzed. It was an anonymous tip. "Victor's meeting tonight. Warehouse on the edge of town. Come alone." His heart pounded. This was the moment to face the shadow that had haunted the neighborhood. The man behind the curtain of intimidation and fear. Against better judgment, but fueled by determination, Jake grabbed his keys and slipped into his Tesla. The car had been his pride and joy, but now it symbolized the fight for justice. A fight he couldn't abandon. As he drove through empty streets, the air thick with anticipation, Jake's mind replayed every moment of the past weeks. The threats, the evidence, the allies, the betrayals. At the warehouse, the dim light flickered ominously. Jake parked and stepped out, every muscle tense. He could feel eyes on him. A figure emerged from the shadows. Victor, tall, broad-shouldered, with a cold, calculating gaze. "So, you're the pest everyone's been buzzing about." Victor sneered. "Thought you could dig up dirt on me and get away with it." Jake stood firm. "Your games are over. The police know about you. Your reign of terror ends tonight." Victor laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "You're brave. Or stupid." Before Jake could react, Victor lunged. But the sudden wail of sirens cut through the night. Police cars surrounded the warehouse, their lights flashing red and blue. Victor's face twisted in fury as officers moved in, cuffing him quickly. "Jake," I exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. Back at the neighborhood, the news spread fast. Victor's arrest shattered the remaining grip Karen's network had on the HOA. With the secret ledger and his confession, prosecutors had everything the mice needed. Weeks later, the community held an emergency HOA meeting. Karen, still facing charges, was absent. The board had been restructured, transparency restored, and trust slowly rebuilt. Jake stood at the podium, addressing his neighbors. "This neighborhood belongs to all of us, not to bullies, not to corruption. Together, we fought back, and together, we'll keep it safe." Applause erupted. But just as Jake was about to step down, a soft beep from his pocket caught his attention. It was his phone. A message popped up from an unknown number. "Nice try. This isn't over." Jake's smile faded. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Yet this time, Jake was ready, with Maria and the community behind him. He knew whatever came next, they would face it together. Because in this neighborhood, justice wasn't just a word. It was a promise.